Craig, when I read your research from the last few months, I was shocked about how 2025 is their year for at least 5 or 6 laws, goals that, I've been asleep. I'm so glad that you're doing the research, but I'm shocked what they want to do in 2025. So we're going to get to each of them. But okay, so what's going on and what's going on with King Charles? I mean, everyone said, oh, he's probably dying, or, what do you say?
He's not dying. He's made plans for the next 7 years. And so it starts with his business and philanthropy forum that begins in November and runs through 2030. And he'll do that at each COP event through COP 35. So beginning from COP 29 to COP 35, he's got 7 years planned that he's going to change the world.
Okay, so explain how, because there's some people who have never heard you, and so how is it going to try to change the world?
So this is done through the Conference of the Parties. And his plan of change is actually in his book, Harmony, but it's also through the Sustainable Markets Initiative. That's the driving force behind all of this. And that is how he's going to do it through the merchants of the earth, the CEOs and the corporations, in order to be the driving force to make change.
Right. And then the change is really through what they say is the climate.
Yeah, he can't do anything politically because of his position. But he can go through the corporations. And so this allows him to do it in a backdoor manner and to bring about his great reset through businesses and the CEOs and the corporations.
Okay, now, but some people are saying, but we haven't heard from him and we're not here. And so what's going on?
Well, he went back to work not too long ago and was working on a regular basis until they called for snap elections in Great Britain. And that now he has to withdraw and until July 5th of 2024. He has to basically be behind the scenes until July 4th. But from July 4th, July 5th is a new moon. So on the ancient calendar, the new moon is the new month. And so that would be the first month of summer on the ancient calendar. If you add 6 months to the day to that, it arrives at December 31st or December 30th, depending on where you're at, of 2024, and that's the final new moon of the year. And that's when he wants to bring about his, right now, a small 7-year deal that increases his pay 45%. So it's a deal for wind power. That's what's going to increase his pay. Okay. But he plans to take that 45% and put it back into just reinvest in it. So he's not going to benefit from that, but he uses it to reinvest in more wind power.
Okay, now, when you said like the Great Reset, people will say, well, wasn't that Klaus Schwab? Now, I know Klaus Schwab is stepping down from the World Economic Forum, even though but does he or whoever with the World Economic Forum answer to King Charles?
He answers to King Charles because the Sustainable Markets Initiative is the one that's bringing about this change. And they announced in their Impact Report 2023 the coronation of our founder on May 6, 2023. So the founder of the SMI, the one who Klaus Schwab looks up to as the presenter of the Great Reset, they coronated their founder in 2023 on May 6th.
Okay, saying that King Charles is the founder.
He's the founder
of the SMI's Sustainable Market.
And then it has his emblem, basically says he's king over all the people in planet and the universe. He said those two emblems on that report.
Okay, so the two emblems would be the Terra Carta and
the Astra Carta.
Okay. Now, everyone, of course, probably has been contacting you and me about what about the painting? What about the painting of King Charles? What do you say?
That painting is blasphemy. Now, I'll show you why. It's showing the metamorphosis of Prince Charles to King Charles. And in essence, it's copycat scenario of the transfiguration of Jesus Christ. Now, what people said about this, saying this thing blew up, and people are saying it looked like he's coming out of hell or there's flames around him. I mean, he did not get any honor from the people about this portrait. And that actually fulfills the prophecy of part of Daniel 11:21, I believe, where it states that the honor of kingship shall not be given to him. And this picture just blew up in his face, and he was given no honor by the people for this portrait.
Okay, interesting. Now, when you said it was depicting like the transfiguration and how?
From a cocoon to a butterfly. The monarch butterfly is on his shoulder.
Okay, and I saw people like blowing things up where I could see like it looked like there was a witch in there, and then of course they're trying to show like the mirror image, and that some people say that that was like Molech. I don't know, but what do you say?
That I think is a little bit of a stretch. I don't think that's the intent of the artist. The artist's full intent was to show the transformation. But it is interesting what you do see in the mirror image. You can't deny you do see some sort of image there. People can have their imagination what it may or may not be.
Right, right, right. Now, I have my theory, but my theory too is, yours is more deeper, but my theory is that when they have these kind of like red backgrounds like that, that it's almost kind of like saying a disaster is about to happen, that they want to, well, anyway, that's, you all know, you can read between the lines, but that's just my
So
opinion.
tyranny, usually tyranny is on its way, communism. And Joe Biden actually did the same thing not too long ago. He did a video where he had all the red background, and you see it with a lot of the Soviet people in the past too. So it's all that red is always a symbol of control.
Ah, very interesting. Right. I saw like Joe Biden did it in 2022 and yeah, okay. But I didn't realize, I guess, that it had a history of with the Soviet Union too. Very interesting. So what's going on with King Charles goals and the Pope? What's going on behind the scenes?
King Charles and Pope Francis, through the SMI, have merged his Terra Carta and the Astra Carta with the Laudato Si and the Laudato Deum. And so there's two aspects of this. That the Terra Carta has a 17, or in the Astra Carta, connected to the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And the Pope takes a portion of those goals and tries to implement those through the religious sector. So I believe his set of goals is 7 goals. He began his 7-year deal, I believe, in 2021. And King Charles strengthened the 7-year deal. It's not the strengthening of Daniel 9:27 yet, but he helped bring about a strengthening of the 7-year deal on December 13th of last year. And that was through the UAE consensus. That's good for 7 years, and then they'll do it again. So the Vatican's theme for this year is political love. So they're bringing the religious political system of Babylon and to bring in the political side, and they're bringing them together. So you have a merging of the politics behind this thing and the religious system behind this thing, they're merging as one. Just so what you're going to get out of it is a revival of the Holy Roman Empire.
Ah, very interesting. And I found it interesting of what they said, that this would be a universal fraternity of pilgrims of hope in, here we go, 2025. So that
begins January 1st of 2025.
Right. So that's just one of the 2025s that you've uncovered.
Pope Francis has declared 2025 to be a gift of grace, unmerited favor, as he seeks to help the world that has been harmed from the pandemic and the ongoing wars to arrive at a rebirth of which we all feel the urgency. So they want something to come about beginning January 1st of next year.
Okay, so speaking of 2025, again, what is the climate promise?
So the UN chief calls for all hands on deck at the Climate Promise 2025 to accelerate efforts from local to international efforts to take more ambitious steps to ensure the global temperature does not heat up beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so this is the UN Development Plan's Climate Promise has already worked with 128 countries. And Mr. Guterres, Antonio, says the need is urgent. And this March was the planet's hottest month on record. What we are seeing is just a preview of the disaster that awaits us unless we limit the long-term rise in global temperature to 1.5. So this is what Antonio Guterres is saying. And they're saying this is still possible, but the time limit is not for long. So there's not much time left. All countries must play in their part. So you don't incorporate everyone. And he states that we need concrete steps to get finance flowing and enable a surge in climate ambition. And he said the G20 must lead the way by submitting a robust, ambitious, comprehensive new national climate plans well ahead of COP30, as well as 2025. So we have a big transition coming between the Pact of the Future this year and COP30 of 2025.
Right, which we'll get to the Pact of the Future for the Future, which will be in September. But I just wanted to talk about with the climate promise. It's like, okay, there's this urgency, it's like saying we don't have time, so it's like 2025. We've got to implement all of this, and then when it says that all countries must play their part, including the group of, and I got this from your research, a group of G20, which accounts for about around 80% of emissions. So basically that's, hey, they're blaming the United States, they're blaming other countries, that it's all of our fault. But yeah, it's that it's like mostly our fault. So we're going to have to really make big changes, like driving electric
So,
cars or scooters.
so this change that they're wanting by January 1st of 2025. But if you go to the new moon, so December 30th and 31st of this year, depending on where you're at, this is when the transition must take place, is at the end of the year. And then you go back to December 13th of last year. That's the exact same day on the lunar calendar that they had the UAE consensus. If you go back 12 months from the UAE consensus, you have the exact same day on the lunar calendar that King Charles did his first Christmas address to the world on sustainability.
So very interesting that they're like sticking to like the calendar, like the biblical
They're
calendar.
following in some aspect the biblical calendar.
Okay, can you explain the Pact for the Future?
The Pact of the Future is a meeting September 22nd and 23rd at the United Nations in New York at the UN General Assembly, wherein nations will agree and sign the so-called deal. The pact is expected to call for declaring for a planetary emergency. This is to address the gaps in global governance, reaffirm existing commitments, including the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is the whole push, is the SDGs and the United Nations Charter. The initial draft was released in January of 2024. They just updated that, and I'll give you some of these actions that they just updated. It proposes overhauling existing institutions. So they want to overhaul everything, reset everything, including those governing international peace and security, global finance, development, and new digital technology. So they're pushing for this new digital system everywhere. And also, the key to this whole thing is on peace and security. So their first action is that we will take bold and ambitious, accelerated, just, and transformative actions to realize a 2030 agenda and leave no one behind. So that's their theme. Once again, leave no one behind.
Yeah, when they say leave no one behind, it sounds like so kind and sweet. But what they mean is everyone is going to have to abide by this.
Yes, well, we already know from Revelation what happens to you if you don't abide by it, because the Antichrist will kill all those that refuse to follow his way. So you have all those that are martyred in the tribulation. So everybody has to follow that, or you're dead. It says we will close the SDG financing gap by providing sustainable, affordable, accessible, predictable development finance and effective means of implementation. And then action 3 is their global trading system is the engine for sustainable development. So this is all the trade. They'll ensure that all the trading is the motivating, basically through your CEOs and your corporations. That's what's going to drive the engine for this. Their number 4 action is to end poverty. We know that will never happen because the Bible says the poor will always be with us.
Yeah, well, also, back to end poverty. I don't know what when people are trusting, let's say the UN or the government, tell me, what are they doing now to help the poor? I mean, just tell me. I don't understand why these people are trusting them when they're not even doing anything right now, but go on.
Well, like you said, they're not. Look at the cities; they're full of the homeless people have taken over. Seattle, Washington, for example, you have to kind of keep your blinders on the sides. You don't want to see what's under the bypasses or what's around the corner. They're absolutely everywhere. Even in the small towns, they're starting to show up everywhere, and they don't do anything. But probably the number one issue, obviously, there's people in there that can't afford to live anymore because of the extreme fluctuations of inflation. But majority of the issue is drugs. They allow all these drugs, and then you have an influx of those living in the street. We will promote gender equality. So we're going to see a big push for that in June of 2024 for gender equality. And then they will protect and promote culture as an integral component of sustainable development. we will combat climate change. So they're basically, when they say we will combat, or they're going to war against climate change, but they're really going to war against God, because God is the one that's given them the climate.
Right, right. And we've done other programs, and when they say they're going to go, do that, they're going to do it through limiting, changing your way of life. For instance, like the 15-minute cities, or having people live in these small little houses, or making sure that you can't drive, or you're going to have to pay tax if you drive too far, or have an electric car. Or I mean, they basically want to totally change your life, and so that's what they mean by control. But yeah, go on.
And they'll spray you from the air, according to Bill Gates. So it appears we're already there, but that's another point.
Yeah,
And
like just look in the skies.
we will accelerate our efforts to protect the environment. That's another one. But the number one goal of this whole thing is international peace and security. And that's where I want to emphasize this. It says we will redouble our efforts to build peaceful, inclusive societies by strengthening resilience and comprehensively address underlying drivers and root causes of armed conflict, violence, and insecurity, and their consequences by accelerating the investment in and implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs. They will also provide equal access to justice, protect civic space, and uphold human rights for all, including through promoting a culture of peace and enhancing human security. So here we go, peace and security again. It's repeated over and over. Ensure that spending on arms does not come on the expense of investment in sustainable development and building sustainable peace. And request the Secretary General to provide analysis on the impact of global increase in military expenditures on the achievement of the SDGs by the end of the 79th session. So that's huge.
Okay, so when you said the 79th, so when is that, September?
That's this September. So that this must be accomplished by this September at the end of the UN General Assembly. We will ensure people affected by humanitarian crisis receive the support they need. We will diffuse tensions, promote cooperation and understanding between member states, and seek the pacific settlement of disputes. We will build and sustain peace at the national level. And we will accelerate the implementation of our commitments on women and peace and security. So women's a big player in this. And we will address environmental and climate impacts on peace and security. We will adapt peace operations to support peace enforcement to better respond to existing challenges and new realities. We will pursue a future free from terrorism. We will combat transnational organized crime and illicit financial flows. We will accelerate progress towards a world free of nuclear weapons. Well, we know from Revelation it's probably not going to happen. We will uphold our disarmament obligations. So they want to disarm everybody, but we know China probably won't disarm, and Russia's probably not going to disarm. We will address the risk posed by emerging domains and technologies. And we will address the risk posed by information, communication, technology, and artificial intelligence. So there they go after the AI as well. So very, very interesting. And then to go on under science and technology, we said we will seize the opportunities presented by science, technology, and innovation for the benefit of all people on the planet. So this is something that's going to be forced on everybody. It is this pact for the future.
Right. And yeah, it's just interesting, like you said, how much they keep on saying peace and safety, because, okay, Craig, there's some people who are watching, they don't know anything about Bible prophecy. What does it say as far as peace and safety? Now, this was like predicted, prophesied 2,000 years ago. What does the Bible say about when they say peace and safety?
It says in 1 Thessalonians 5:3 that while they are saying peace and security, then sudden destruction will come. So it's at that moment this thing gets implemented, that's when the sudden destruction comes. So it doesn't mean they can sign this thing in September, and they probably will, but it's the implementation date, whenever that day is, that we need to be watching. And it looks like to be January 1st of 2025.
Okay, and I was like looking at some of the list of some of their maybe their goals too. They were saying meaningfully include young people in global decision making. That one hit me because of, what's going on with our educational system and how their children are already being brainwashed. So they're like, oh, of course we'll trust you now because you think like we do. And then reform the international financial architecture. And I found that interesting too, because of, trying to have everything digital. And then what you were talking about with technology combined with digital, just where everybody would have to get an implant, maybe like the Neuralink or whatever, however they're going to sell it. But the Neuralink or the chip or whatever, it's going to control you. That's why in the Bible, it talks about that once you get this mark where you can't buy or sell anything without it, once you get it, that's it for you. You can't become a believer in Jesus. That's it. So, and I never quite understood that, but I realize now through this technology, they'll be able to control you. And then transform education, which they've already been doing that. And any other thoughts regarding the UN meeting?
This UN meeting, the number one thing to watch, in my opinion, is their need to better respond to global shocks. They're going to repeat this over and over and over again. Some guide that they're going to use for the next global shock. And that maximizes the use of the Secretary General's convening power in the form of an emergency platform. Now, the World Health Organization just failed on a similar plan. This is a much larger plan that's trying to be pushed by September. So these global shocks, we can read all about them in the book of Revelation, and you'll see what they are. So basically, this has been preparation for what's coming, the tribulation. They're telling us from last September at the UN General Assembly that their path forward is going to go through much tribulation. So they're telling they use that word, and it's like, there we go. And they're telling us it's for the length of time as well. So last year they said it's 7 years. So we'll see what they say this year. So.
Right, but with global shocks, I mean, that could be anything. But of course, Bill Gates now is talking about the bird flu and saying that 80% of the world's population can die. So they're always using scare tactics.
They want to account for the future. So this is making practical steps to take account of long-term impact on their decisions. And then they want to measure human progress more effectively. But this is another control tactic. So they're going to want to see their progress. They want to agree on a vision of their digital technology, which we discussed, as a motor for human progress that can deliver full benefits while minimizing potential harm. They want to commit to integrity in public information so that they want more censorship. And I did a report last year at 37 weeks ago to COP28. And I just got censored for that because the photo wasn't to their liking. And so it had an Israel flag and a British flag. And they said that was not allowed on their on Facebook platform.
Yeah, I've gotten so much censoring on Facebook that I finally basically gave up. That's one of the reasons why. I mean, I'm on there here and there, but yep, censorship was like too much.
So number 8 is they want to advance the peaceful and sustainable use of outer space. So we see this with the King's Astor Carta, as well as the driving force behind this. And number 1 is to agree on a new agenda for peace. So this is a brand new agenda, and update our understanding of all forms and domains of threats and adapt our toolbox to prevent and manage hostilities on land, at sea, space, and in cyberspace. There's just full control everywhere throughout the universe. And we already talked about how they want to transform education. They've been doing that way back when. If you have your kids in public school, probably best to get them out. And UN 2.0 is to adapt the basic UN practices on data, communications, innovation, strategic foresight, performance and results, and more. So it is better positioned to support all the above things we've just discussed and the challenges in the future. So they want to meet all these goals they've had in the past, and then make it greater, a new pact for an undisclosed amount of time. So this meeting in September, they will state how long this is for, but that until September, we don't.
Okay, Craig, what is the Rome Call document?
The Rome Call document is the tech giant Cisco Systems that has joined Microsoft and IBM in signing onto a Vatican-sponsored pledge to ensure that AI, or artificial intelligence, is developed and used ethically and to benefit the common good. So everybody has to join in on this, and it's being pushed by the Roman Catholic Church. Cisco Systems Chief Executive Chuck Robbins has signed the document known as the Rome Call and has met privately with Pope Francis, stating that the AI must be designed, used, and regulated to serve and protect the dignity of all human beings without discrimination in their environments. And so we know from Revelation 13 that there's a mark coming one day, a certification mark, and this is one way there. This is like the beginning step of pushing that agenda.
I know, it's like you're so crazy. You're just like saying, wait, Vatican and AI, what does anything, it's like, what does it have to do with anything, with each other? And yet it explains it, like you said, in the book of Revelation.
And this is coming at the same time as their deadline for digital ID. This is in order to fly. So by May 7th of 2025, you have to have some form of real ID or digital ID in order to fly.
Yeah, so it's just interesting because here we have another 2025. The Rome Call document, which you just talked about, is 2025. And then now the digital ID, which you're talking about now, that their deadline now is May 7th, 2025. Any other thoughts about that?
And I'll emphasize this thing has been pushed out over and over and over again. So I remember it being 2020 and it's been pushed out for several years. And Donald Trump helped stall that while he was in office. But this is a worldwide global thing, so one man isn't going to stop. He isn't probably going to slow it down this time around. This concept they have begins in 2025 and beyond. So that's the whole thing. So this transition for digital ID is pretty much global, and then it's forever. So according to these guys, and so we know from the Bible it says, "He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in the right hand or on their foreheads, that no man may buy or sell." Revelation 13:16 through 17. And you can Google certification mark ID 2020, and all that information is already verbally being used. And they're waiting for that next pandemic.
Talking about pandemic, what is the Pandemic Preparedness Day? And it's at the end of the year. It's like going right to 2025. But can you explain that?
That's scheduled for December 27th. Of this year, and the UN has a day designated to prepare for the next pandemic. So that's huge, because we know based on history that most of these pandemics come with winter. And so that would be something very interesting to watch. I mean, that includes everything in the past 100 years. You don't get a flu in the middle of the summer, you get a flu in the winter.
And now another 2025 that I was like reading with your research was the biometric payment. What does that have to do with 2025 too?
So JP Morgan and Bank of America are gearing up to launch their broad biometric payment systems that will be made available to all retailers, and to make it available to all U.S. retailers by early of 2025. This will enable shoppers to make purchases without pulling out a physical piece of paper or currency or plastic credit and debit cards. It's a payment system, but using your face. It's also for getting into your bank account that it's using your face. So Bank of America is already doing that. And I believe JP Morgan's probably right there as well. So there's some companies already implementing this system. Panera Bread is already implementing this system. So you can pay with your face. Also, you pay with your hand already at the Amazon One. You just walk in and pay with your hand. So we already have that system in place.
Right. And then you were saying too that there is professional sports franchises that are already using it too, with this biometric payment. But I mean, of course, that's going to really lead to the digital, everybody being digitized.
Yeah, everybody. And then, so Birch is reporting this, and I actually follow them on Linked. So I get all his updates on Linked. Once they start, so it's just a matter of time before this technology is installed in all retail stores. And they'll be banning anyone from buying or selling products unless you're among the digitally marked. At that point, we are at Revelation 13.
Okay, right. So again, the biometric payment, they're saying they want to make it available to all U.S. retailers by early next year, by 2025. I mean, 2025, we need to be praying a lot. And but I still believe in the Lord's protection. But Craig, there's people who are watching and they don't know how to be saved. They don't know how to know Jesus personally. Can you explain?
The way to be saved is to believe that Jesus came, he died on the cross for our sins, he was buried and became sin for us, and he rose again on the third day and was the first of all creation. And that's what we need to believe to be saved. It's in 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4, and that's the plan of salvation laid out by the Apostle Paul. So we must believe the gospel, the good news, in order to be saved. And we will be able to escape this. And some people will have to suffer through it because there's lots of martyrs that live during the tribulation. There's going to be a lot of martyrdom. But either way, there's salvation. So.
Yeah, well, I ended up becoming a believer by reading up about Bible prophecy because I was not brought up in a Christian home. And when I ended up reading some books about Bible prophecy and that, oh my goodness, here, everything that is going on in the world was prophesied 2,000 and even more thousands of years ago. That totally changed my life. And that's what convinced me that, all right, yep, Jesus is real. I mean, it even prophesies in the Tanakh, the Old Testament, that he would be denied and that some would not believe in him. So, but reading up about Bible prophecy is so amazing. And that's why I do this program, because I want everyone to know Jesus. Craig, any other thoughts?
Well, just to show how close we are, the Temple Institute in Israel has 5 red heifers, and one of those has to be sacrificed. One of those has to be good enough with no gray hairs in the next year to be sacrificed for a new temple. And the Temple Institute stated this spring that sacrifice will take place when their King Mashiach is revealed. And so we have a 1 year period, or less than 1 year period right now, that those red heifers are still able to be sacrificed without giving you that first gray hair. And that happens only after their king is revealed.
Wow, so they're believing that for 2025.
They're believing that for 2025. It has to happen. They have a specific date in mind, and that's not important. It'd be the same day as it was done in the Old Testament. So what we'll see after this event, sometime after this event, is there's a 7-year peace agreement or confirming of agreement between Israel and multiple nations. And that could be CEOs and corporations as well. That fulfills Daniel 9:27 and Revelation 17:12. We'll see a world government forming in front of us, but that world government takes hold at the beginning of the tribulation, Revelation 13:3, Revelation 17:12 through 13. Russia and Iran will invade Israel. That's sometime believed to be sometime in the beginning of the tribulation. There'll be severe inflation. So right now everything is double priced. So we're paying double for food, double for rent, double for your car, double for gas. But in Revelation 6:5 through 6, it describes something so severe that your day's wages, all you can afford is a meal at the end of the day. We see the mark of the beast, and we discussed that, where we have a certification mark that we see forming right in front of us. There'll be millions of Christian martyrs, Revelation 6:9, Revelation 7:13 through 17. There's a total loss of freedom once this begins. That's Revelation 13:16 through 18. And there'll be billions of humans die, Revelation 6:8, that's opening of the seals. And Revelation 9:18, so a huge amount of population reduction begins during the tribulation. In fact, the Antichrist will be called death. So when he went at the midpoint of the tribulation, what comes with him is massive death. Israel burdens the world. So we see that already happening today, where all the nations are going against him. And we just saw 3 countries issue a statement that Palestine should be a state. So Israel burdens the world, Zechariah 12:3. So the conflicts surrounding Israel are going to increase dramatically during the tribulation. And we have the world pharmakeia, deception that takes place, Revelation 18:23b, sorcery comes from the Greek pharmakeia. So this comes on the back end of the December 27th event that they're planning for the next pandemic. And we see that deception forming already. So that's what to expect. I believe in a pre-trib rapture. Some people don't, but either way, you need to trust God. So
Well, right. And whether it's like pre-trib or post-trib, which, different people start. If it's pre-trib, we want to be ready. We want to be ready whenever it is. But what I find, scary is if some people just go, well, it's not going to happen for a while, so I could just, kind of. No, we want to be ready now. Now, Craig, how can people?
You need to be ready. You always need to be ready. And you're ready by believing in Jesus Christ and his finished work on the cross. You can't add works to your salvation. It's simple belief.
Right, but that belief actually changes you.
That belief will bring about lots of change in you from day one. In fact, my grandfather was a farmer, and he had every curse word that came out of him all day long. And while on a tractor, there was a pastor that came to him while he was farming and led him to the Lord. And that from that day forward, the vocabulary from him changed, and his cows. He told us that his cows did not understand him the next day. So because his language had changed, so they weren't following his command because all that vocabulary was taken away from him. So that's how salvation can change a person.
Wow, right. And if anyone said, "Oh, he just realized that he shouldn't be," no, come on. In one day, you can't just like change your vocabulary. Maybe if he worked on it for like a long period of time. But yeah, no. I mean, there's just like so many amazing things when you accept the Lord. And I've talked to so many people with their testimonies. Some people just instantly get off of drugs. And, I mean, it's their life changes, and honestly, you become the real you. And how can people follow you on Facebook, Craig? Because you have amazing updates keeping everybody informed.
They can follow me on Craig Bong on Facebook, and they can follow me I post occasionally on Signs of the End on Facebook, and also Rapture Watchers in all caps on Facebook, and that's a group. So my private one is you're going to get one post a day approximately.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today. The World Economic Forum plans to implant a brain chip into every human by 2027. Is this the mark of the beast? Billy Crone reveals the shocking truth in this video. Click to watch now.